Hello and welcome to Creating Connections, episode 158. I'm Vicki Musney.
And I'm Mitch Taylor.
We have a really special guest joining us for today's episode. Tell us about her, Mitch.
Today's guest is an international business consultant by day and a DJ by night that travels the world training businesses of all sizes, from Fortune 100 companies to small business entrepreneurs, on the effective Agile approaches to do twice the work in half the time. She's worked with companies like IBM, Microsoft, and Disney, as well as startup companies from Shanghai to Tampa. Her Formula Inc. is her company. She has walked through both worlds, DJ and corporate, on many occasions, oftentimes leading corporate trainings and then DJing those corporate conferences in the evening. She spoke at global conferences all over, from Singapore, Portugal, New Zealand, and the Caribbean. She's highly sought after for both her business expertise and to bring to life celebrations and events around the world. Please welcome to the Creating Connections podcast, Maria Matarelli.
Don't go away. That was nice and easy.
What are you talking about? This also speaks to a much bigger issue.
Providing personal solutions through understanding people. This is the Creating Connections podcast with Gitomer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vicki Musney.
Welcome back to Creating Connections, episode 158. This is Maria. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, we're really excited to have you. Maybe, Mitch, do you want to share briefly how we connected with Maria, and then we can let her kind of tell her background story?
So Maria and I and Vicki met all at NSA Winter Conference last year, not 2018, but 2017, out in San Francisco. Vicki was kind of sick and under the weather.
I know. I was not at my networking best that trip at all. So that's why you introduced her, because I just kind of barely waved. I didn't shake anybody's hands because I was sick.
Yeah, it was funny. Maria was sat, I think, 3 seats down from me or so, and just had a brief chat and asked me to share the audio from the presentation that she saw me taking, and that just kind of snowballed from there. So that's how we connected with Maria, and I was awed by what I saw her doing, which I thought was great from a standpoint of combining two of my loves, from the standpoint of travel and DJing, but also the speaking side of things.
That's 3 things you love, Mitch.
Yes. Well, yes, that is 3 things I love. There are more things I love beyond that, but
yeah. But travel, speaking, and DJing are pretty high up there on that list. So
yes.
Yeah.
So tell us, how did you get involved? Let's talk with the business side first, Maria. How did you specifically get involved with coaching entrepreneurs and Fortune 100 companies on what you teach on? Then we'll talk about what you teach on, I guess.
Yeah, well, it all started, Mitch, back, several years ago, where I was working in a cubicle. I remember looking around and wondering, is there anything more to life than this? And I just always wanted to get out of that cubicle and do something bigger, make a bigger impact. And what actually gave me that avenue to do that was through speaking. And I discovered that by speaking and submitting myself to speak at conferences and building up my speaking portfolio, that allowed me to not just get out of that 9-to-5 job, but it was kind of a stepping stone into starting my consulting company. And then as I started to book things throughout the US, I had an opportunity to speak at a conference in Sweden not too long after that. And once I did that, it felt like after I went international, suddenly people in the US thought that I had something worthy to say, because they're like, oh, well, they like you over there, then you must be good for us over here in the US. And so I feel like that really started to open some doors then. So then I launched my training company and consulting, and I do that now around the world.
Awesome.
Well, and it's funny because we only met you when you were already in that, traveling around the world and not even really having a home for a long time and just always on the road. I laughed when I tried to picture you sitting in a cubicle working a 9-to-5 job, because I'm like, not who we met. So
no.
It surprised me that you were not happy in that environment and needed to make that change.
Yeah, she was much sadder then.
So now the other side, besides the training and consulting, we know you also DJ. So
Yes.
how did that come into play? Were you doing that when you were doing the 9 to 5?
No, so that's actually a really interesting story because I was speaking at a conference in Philly and I was giving a keynote presentation talking about Agile applied to marketing. And that's a lot of what I train on, is helping businesses do more stuff in less time, deliver more value with half the effort, and just be more efficient overall. And I was giving this presentation on how to apply Agile to marketing. And one of our friends was putting on the conference, and he said that, you know, the people coordinating it forgot to book evening entertainment. So he was a little panicked because he loves dancing. And he was like, we must have some kind of dancing and music because that's how people really come together, especially at events like that. So he asked my buddy Nick and I, he was like, hey, do you and Maria want to DJ? And Nick's like, yeah, sure. Hey, Maria, you want to DJ? And I was like, yes. And I'd never actually done it before, but I thought it sounded fun. And after that event, it was, you know, a couple hundred people, no big deal. And I was scared, like so nervous, like I didn't know what to do. And Nick's like, okay, so here's one song on this side, here's a song on the other side. Here's how you switch between them, you know, match the beats, and yeah, you're good. I'm like, whoa, surely there's more to it than that. Like, what else do I need? And he kept like jumping off of stage to go smoke a cigarette and talk to people. And I was like, hey, come back. Where'd you go? And he's like, you're doing great. Keep going. I'm like, ah. like it was definitely not the most ideal start, but that's
hilarious, though.
Right? I'm sure you can picture that. So it's one of those things where I just jumped in and I said, you know what? I'm going to try this. And we did good. We had a great event. And I said, I want to do more of this. I just instantly loved it. So Nick found us a standing gig in the warehouse district of St. Pete, Florida. And so we started DJing open mic nights and then some art shows. And then I was traveling, actually speaking at a conference in Singapore. And I ran into the conference coordinators for an event in Munich, Germany. That was 2 weeks later. And so I was just telling them about how much I love DJing and I'd done it at this event. And they're like, hey, do you want to DJ in Munich? And I was like, go play. I was like, yes. Is that a trick question? But Nick had all of our gear in Florida. So this is one of those when preparedness meets opportunity. Yes. I literally went and bought new gear, everything brand new from just a store, a music store in Munich, Germany.
Nice.
And I had a flyer designed to promote the event. I didn't even have approval to DJ. And I had a friend of mine go and print the flyers out. And I was like, well, if nothing else, we'll just go to someone's suite and DJ the after party. And I walk into the networking party and IBM was the head sponsor and there was no music. And the PR girl from the organization doing the conference comes running up. She's like, Maria, there's no music. There's no music. And I'm like, so? Like, I didn't get it. And she's like, you can DJ. It's like, what? And so she's like, go get your gear. So I was like, right? So I go back to my room, grab my gear, DJ'd an international conference of like 750 people. And it's all like from there, I just started traveling with my gear everywhere and I'm always looking for places to DJ. So just in the last couple of years, I've DJ'd in Fiji, in New Zealand, Paris, and Portugal, in India, Thailand, and throughout the US and the Caribbean.
Nice.
Wow. That's fantastic.
That's amazing. And bouncing and traveling on one-way tickets, right? It was the one-way ticket tour?
Most of these trips. Yeah, so my summer tour last year was Fiji to Shanghai, to Singapore, to Thailand, to India, and then back to the US and Chicago.
Wow.
Crazy.
Yeah, that was actually a tour with...
Favorite?
What's that?
Favorite place that you've gotten to visit or perform?
Fiji. I'm just gonna say Fiji because I stayed on one of those overwater bungalows.
I hate
like
you.
On the water. No, you can come too. So the hottest club in Fiji in Nadi is Ice Bar, and I DJed there 3 times. Most of the times I've been there. So, Mitch, that can be your world too. And that's actually what I'll be talking about in my presentation at the conference. Is how people can apply some of these techniques to be agile, to be able to adapt, and to be able to jump on opportunities rather than trying to plan it out and hope one day in the future.
So let's talk about Agile specifically. I know you're going to be talking about this with us at Midwest DJs Live here in a couple weeks, but specifically, give us an example of how someone would take and apply Agile, for example, to a marketing campaign. Sure. And one thing, I'll start with just an example of developing a product
because that's where Agile is often associated with.
Okay.
And I'll apply it to marketing.
Okay.
So say, for example, that you're building a website and you have a new business, or you're just a DJ wanting people to know who you are and what you do. Most people would say, okay, well, I need to figure out what's all the stuff for the site. Well, you don't need to have all the pages figured out in order to get a home page up. So Agile is an iterative approach. We want to say, what's the minimum viable thing I can do now? And then I'll come back and add to that. What that does is it simplifies what it is that you're doing. And it's not this huge website that's overwhelming. It's like, no, what do I need to do on the home page? Let's get that up this week. Then next week, let's add a services page. Then let's add a pricing page. Then let's add video or media. And so when you use that iterative approach, it suddenly takes something that could be complex and makes it much more simple and helps you get to market faster. Now, Mitch, to your question about Agile applied to marketing, so this is where you might say, okay, I want to launch a promotion or a marketing campaign. Well, instead of saying, what's everything gonna look like for this? We don't even know if anybody wants what we're offering. So we wanna do that minimum viable campaign. Mm-hmm. Let's figure out who's our primary audience, and let's get our hypothesis of who's gonna be interested in our product. Who is it? What is it that they want and why? And then let's run some short campaigns or different ads to split test what messaging works, what target audience works. And so again, just like with the website, we don't need the whole website planned out to get started. We don't need a whole marketing plan just to put out some test ads, just to see if there's any interest. So we start with something small, and then we see what's working, and then we build upon that.
So it's kind of like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Exactly. I don't eat many elephants, but it's that concept.
Yes, it is that concept for sure. No, and I'm laughing and smiling and nodding in agreement for those of you that are just listening and not watching the video as well. But I think some of us have a tendency to make things more complicated than they have to be.
Yes.
And we feel like, I can't start if I don't know all of the steps. And I don't know, it sounds so simple. It's like, well, you don't have to know everything. You just have to know X, and then you can do that. And then later when you know Y, you can add that. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense.
So what would you say, I'm going to totally throw this out there, because I have friends that are so much the analysis paralysis thing, and so many people who, well, I want to know if it's, 30 feet of water or 3 feet of water before I jump.
Right.
What would you say to someone who's on that side of things and saying, well, I'm not going to just leap, because what if it's only 3 feet?
That's such a great question. And, there's so many things that can hold us back from moving forward in life in a variety of applications, right? Whether that's with your business, with your career, with your job, with anything else, like a hobby. And, the unknown can be scary. But what I found, and I actually took a big leap. It's so funny because thinking back, like maybe 8 to 10 years ago, I have friends that, I remember a conversation once. I had a friend that said, we're talking about risk. And he's like, yeah, you're not very risk averse, or like, you're not like a person that takes risk. And I was like, What do you mean? Like, that sounds like not cool to not take risk, right?
Right.
And I was like, what do you mean? And I think, fast forwarding to today, I definitely can check that box of being a risk taker. I mean, even with my travels, I often fly into countries with nowhere to stay. And like, if, for example, I flew into Italy a couple years ago and I had nowhere to stay. I just, at the airport, went to a coffee shop, a little cafe, logged on the Wi-Fi, found a little bed and breakfast. And this is in Venice. And I was like, okay, I'll figure it out when I get there. And, the whole idea is when you, like, even just traveling the world, it used to seem like a big, scary place to me. But now it's not, because I've been so many places, it seems like a very small place. Also with meeting people in different locations. So suddenly it's not so big and scary. And when you start look at taking risk, what I want to challenge people to do is look at how can you take the risk out. So be aware of what the risks are, but if you can put enough things in place to where you do have some certainty, and this is where Agile helps. We take some big thing that might seem overwhelming. We say, well, what's one thing I can do this week that will get me closer to that? Mm-hmm. And when you can start to just break down these larger goals or these larger things into something that's more manageable or something that isn't as overwhelming, now we can start to mitigate the risk on a smaller scale. So for example, if you're wanting to, I was just talking to a DJ about this actually just a few days ago. And he was like, well, I want to DJ out of state or out of the country. I was like, well, hey, here's an idea. Why don't, I was like, that's easy. If that's like one of your biggest goals for the year, that can easily be done. And I can show you how, because I've done it before. So what if you can find someone that's done the thing you want to do and link, leverage, and align with them? What if, so I'm like, hey man, I'm DJing at a conference in Pittsburgh in a couple of months. Like, would you like to do a guest spot at the event? Because I know that, that will help him to be able to add to his portfolio. I was like, hey, I DJ'd last year at St. Pete Beach and he's got a standing gig there. I was like, hey, could I get a guest spot at your event? He's like, yeah, no problem. It's like, all right, cool. There, boom, solved. So I think too often we overcomplicate stuff. And when you think about what's the simplest thing that could possibly work, who's somebody that's done that thing before, now it doesn't have to be so unknown. It doesn't have to be like, that seems so big. We can
so far away.
Exactly. So we can actually simplify it and take out what that perceived risk is.
Well, and then back to Mitch's analogy with the water. So no, maybe you shouldn't dive in case it is only 3 feet. But if you find somebody that's already been in the water,
yes,
and say, hey, can I jump in with you? Then you're eliminating the risk and figuring out what makes the most sense.
Removing the risk is important.
Yeah.
Or even just dip in a toe or lean down and put your hand in and see if it's cold or warm or how cold it is, right? So, but I think too often we think it's all or nothing and we forget that we can take an incremental step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, small steps forward are still forward. Is that the saying?
Exactly.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Maria, I want to make sure we give people what they need out of your episode. Where can people go to get more information about you?
Yes, you can find me on my website, findmaria.com. That will take you to mariamatarelli.com. And if you want to connect with me and see more of my DJ travels, that is idjmm.com, which stands for International DJ Maria Matarelli. So findmaria.com, that is my professional alter ego. And then idjmm.com, that's my DJ alter ego.
Sweet. Awesome.
And then, of course, there's still opportunity if you have been on the fence about checking out Midwest DJs Live in Milwaukee. You've got 2 weeks to get your travel plans in order, get your ticket, and come and see Maria in Milwaukee, because we actually will get to see both sides of her, the professional side. She is our closing keynote for day 1 of the show, Monday afternoon, evening. I don't know what time it's
Monday
at,
afternoon.
Closing keynote on Monday, and then Monday evening entertaining us with her DJ skills and just sharing both sides of that. So I'm super excited to have you at the show. And if you are listening and have been even thinking about it and you can get yourself to Milwaukee for a couple days, do it.
What's the one piece of advice you'd give any entrepreneur, Maria?
Ooh, just one? I only get one? Okay,
Just
let
one.
me think here. One advice for any entrepreneur. Ooh, I think what I would say is find accountability, because that's where I'm at right now is, there's so many tips I could give to entrepreneurs.
Sure.
But the one thing is when you set your goals, find some accountability, because as an entrepreneur, we're sometimes lone soldiers. Yep. And it can be very challenging. Or like just for me, here I was last year, I traveled through 80 cities in 1 year, which is like about 7 per month. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And I also passed through like 15 countries, and I got to a point where it was unsustainable. And so I'm right now pivoting my business model to say, how can I do business without traveling so much? So like as that lone soldier, I went off and like took the weight of the world on my shoulders, completely wore myself down, and I wasn't as effective as I could be for scaling. Right. So what I want to encourage people to do is find accountability, find a mentor, find someone else that maybe they're in a similar business, maybe they're in a complementary business. Maybe it's just somebody you can bounce ideas off of. But I think every so often we have to stop and reflect and say, what am I doing? Is it the most accurate, the best thing that I should be doing right now? Or should I be doing something different? And so having accountability or someone outside of yourself to bounce ideas off of can help with that.
Cool. Awesome. Maria, thank you so much for for being on our show, I should say. We greatly appreciate having you on the show. We're looking forward to seeing you in person, live at Midwest DJs Live, both on stage and behind the decks.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited for it, Mitch. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
and for anyone on the fence that is thinking about coming, one of the things we'll talk about at the end of the day Monday is simple techniques you can apply to be more agile in building your DJ career or your business, whether it's an event business, a DJ business. We're going to talk about techniques that I teach large companies like IBM, Microsoft, Disney around the world, how they can do things to get to market faster, to market more effectively. And that's what you will learn on the end of day one.
Awesome.
Can't wait. Thanks so much, Maria. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Sounds good.
Oh my gosh, her energy. You talk about a yellow. I mean,
Yep.
That was so fun.
But yet she's driven.
Yes. No,
so
she definitely has. She definitely
whitey.
has red in there too. No, it's not fighting. I mean, you can have yellow traits that are still yellow.
True.
But the healthy traits and that love of adventure and spontaneity and just taking a risk, taking advantage of an opportunity that presents itself that wasn't planned.
Yeah.
Those are all really positive, healthy, yellow reactions to different situations that she has encountered. And but I love that.
Kudos to her. And I had a coaching call with Maria as well, not that long ago actually, and she is got a great story too. Maybe that'll be a future talk or episode or something, who knows. But Maria is coming to Midwest DJs Live just 2 weeks away. So if you don't have your tickets yet, get your tickets now to learn exactly what she teaches Fortune 100 companies that you can apply to your business from an agile standpoint, how to get more work done in about half the time.
Isn't that what we all want and need?
Well, food and water also good.
Well, if you get your work done in half the time, you have more time to take care of yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Thanks so much for watching Creating Connections episode 158. I'm Mitch Taylor.
And I'm Vicki Musney.
We provide personal solutions through understanding people. We'll see you next time.
Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Creating Connections podcast with Gittimer Certified Advisor Mitch Taylor and Certified Personality Trainer Vicki Musney. For more information on providing personal solutions through understanding people better, visit creatingconnections.biz.